I discovered that there is actually a type of broccoli called purple sprouting broccoli. I thought they were bluffing. I thought for sure this is, purple cauliflower. No, no, it's actually a real thing. So,
Hey, it's Dr. William Lee, physician, scientist, and author of the book Eat to Beat Disease. I am actually doing a new series with my friends and colleagues who are like minded, especially doctors. And we're going to have a conversation about what we do, what we think, and about the real life, real world experiences that we've had. It's quite different than being on stage or on a formal social media interview. And today I'm joined by my good friend and colleague, Dr. Uma Naidu, who is a Harvard professor of psychiatry who has really the founder of nutritional psychiatry, and she's the author of a book that you can see in the background there called "This Is Your Brain on Food." I'm very excited by it. I highly recommend the book. And what I want everyone to know is that this is really kind of like for people who are watching and listening, you get to be essentially a fly on the wall, listening to two friends and colleagues who are doctors who care about food and health. Just have a conversation. So, welcome, Uma. How you doing?
thanks so much, Will. I think this is such a great idea. Always enjoy talking with you. And, your quote is on the top of my book. It's right on the cover. So thank you for that too.
Well, listen, I thought, one thing that we could talk about that was so extraordinary, and I've done a lot of pretty cool things in my life, but a recent highlight was spending time with you. You and I found ourselves in the same garden of,
Yes.
all right, wait for it, the HRH, His Royal Highness Prince Charles, his country home in West London. And we were there after you and I spoke and
Yeah.
gave keynotes at a integrative medicine conference. So obviously we were talking about food and health and mental
Yes.
health and physical health. And we got invited as special guests to meet with the prince. But let's go from there. Like, what was your impression? What did you think from that experience? What
Well,
did you see?
firstly, I was really excited to have friends around me because it was certainly a little bit nerve-wracking. Unlike you, have done fewer cool things in my life, and so this was a big one for me. And it was nice to be surrounded by friendly faces, yourself and the other doctors whom I knew. But it also was a little bit scary when I first heard that we were going to do that. I have to share that because I kind of got anxious. I was like, "Is this even real? Is this happening?"
Did you have to? Did you practice curtsying?
I did, because
I
because
had to
you
practice. I had to practice my head bow because they made
yes,
it really clear, like you can't bow from the waist like a samurai warrior.
yes.
You have to bow from the head.
Exactly. So, the curtsy is not like the ballet, because I've studied ballet, but it's not like the traditional curtsy. It's a very small one and all of that. So we wanted to be really proper when we were in England. But it was such a cool visit. And what I took away was there's so much heart that the prince has in this movement, the food is medicine movement. He came across as very engaging and sincere and soft-spoken, as he does, I'm sure, on media appearances. But in conversation with him, I felt like he was listening and hearing what we each had to say. So I thought it was a wonderful conversation around his kind of dining room table and served tea and coffee. I just thought it was super elegant and so much fun.
You know what was so cool? So just for everyone listening, so we met in the morning at his residence, and we waited outdoors in a space that
The
had this
garden, yeah,
gardens around it.
yeah,
But those were like the mini gardens, the real
yes,
gardens
the
I
mini
got to see
gardens,
after the meeting.
yeah,
And I don't think any of us knew what to expect. We were there with some
yeah,
other, well-known friends and colleagues like Dean Ornish and and others,
David
David
Perlmutter,
Perlmutter
yeah,
and Tim Spector.
and Tim Spector, yeah,
Uh, and I think that what was really interesting is when we got all shuttled into the
yes,
home, and I didn't know what to call it. Is it a house? Is it a palace?
but, correct.
Like it wasn't
We had
exactly
no
a
idea.
little country home.
It wasn't
It,
tiny. It
it
was
was
definitely
it
not
was
tiny.
huge. We went in almost through a side door,
Yeah,
and then quickly like went through where it looked like the butler would go, whatever, and then we were boom in his dining room
in this huge dining room. Yeah, yeah,
and big wooden table. very elegantly done, but not over the top. It wasn't like a
But over the
museum. It
top.
was it
It
was
wasn't. It
comfortable.
was homely. It
It
was,
was
but
very homely.
it was very homely because I noticed like the beautiful bone china and the way that it was laid out. It was just very elegant without being showy or over the top, and set so nicely for us to have a cup of tea or coffee.
except for
But
the except for the except for the formal royal nameplates in
yes, the
front of
name.
our assigned seating.
So we knew where to sit. But the other thing I noticed is that his seat. So first I was wandering around with all of us. We were kind of trying to find our places, and there was one seat which had a cushion, right, and that was his. That was his seat. It was sort of interesting, and yeah, it was definitely a bucket list moment. And I think it was really a great honor, and I was so happy to share it with good friends and colleagues like yourself.
Well, the theme of what we talked about is that he was interested in hearing our opinions about was how can food make a nation healthier in the future?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
almost forget about the past. How do we move forward with things?
Yeah.
And what I loved about the opportunity is that each of us got a chance to present our own point of view, but then we all
Mhm.
jumped in and he jumped in quickly and we
Yeah.
really wound up having a conversation. There was a little bit about, there was a little industry bashing, like, oh, all the bad guys that are out there. But I think for the most part, what everybody focused on was, this very positive future if we all
Yeah.
ate in ways that were more responsible to our bodies and our community and
Yeah.
our planet.
That is absolutely correct. And I think that there'll be potentially some good work that'll come out of kind of getting really wonderful experts together who can have that conversation. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
So we
Um,
should just well, listen. I just want to like let's go talk about it. So
yeah,
briefly, we all got in charge of doing something. We all were appointed
yeah, yeah,
to do
right.
something. There was a consensus statement that I'm supposed to help put out, and I think what are you supposed to do?
So what we want to do is produce. The prince shared with us that he had created a guide, or he had worked with others to create a guide for farmers, but that it was super helpful. And William, at the Harvard School, TH School of Health, Public Health, they produced something called the Harvard Healthy Eating Plate. That has also gotten dinged, by the way. It's no project or that we produce is ever perfect. Everyone has an opinion. I respect that. I think nutrition is about conversation to move the food as medicine movement forward. But it sort of was an idea of how do we either create a graphic or a pamphlet, as they call it in England, for people to kind of look at what healthy foods are. Because remember, you and I know 200, 300 different foods and the causes and all the bio mechanisms behind it. But often, for the average human being, it's moving from a processed junk food, fast food, highly sugared diet just to a slightly better, healthier food, because we have to start somewhere, and not everyone also has access. So it's a thoughtful project which we will all work on together, and hopefully it'll be of help to people.
And I know that you're on me to actually submit my ideas of healthy food. So okay, that's cool. Well, look, let's something I wanted to ask you, even when we were traveling, but I'm going to ask you now. So, look, it was like I've traveled so little in the last 2.5 years because of the
Yes, me
pandemic,
too.
and then all of a sudden, here we were, in London together. And so, what's one memorable thing that you
Mm,
ate? And I don't care if it's healthy or not. You can just talk about it. Like, but what was
yeah,
something that you ate that was memorable? Like, I always think when I travel, when I come home, I
yeah,
love to talk about something amazing that I actually had. So,
yeah.
what was some real life experience that you had for food that you
S-
can remember?
So I have two. I have one
Okay,
healthy and one unhealthy one. So let me
right.
start with the fun one, which is the unhealthy one. William, one of the things I grew up as a child, I grew up in South Africa, and one of the things that's different is donuts are made differently compared to American donuts. There's sort of a different batter that you use, and they are filled with actual whipped fresh cream, sort of dairy cream, unlike say a cream donut that you have in the United States. And someone in my family procured these treats that we used to have as kids because they also made in the UK. So that was the unhealthy one because of course the donut was deep fried. Of course
So,
it had the
how
treat.
big is it? How big is it?
It's actually because it's the UK, it was probably a much smaller
Okay.
version, and it's almost like a an oblong. It's not the round donut. That's the other thing that's different. The shape is different, and so that was super delicious and really took me back to positive memories of my childhood and tasting that. But
And that
also the difference,
and that
yeah,
counts too, right? I mean,
that
basically,
counts. Those
I
happy
always talk.
moments count.
I just having hearing you talking about it, Uma,
Hmm.
makes me happy because
Yeah,
obviously that brought you back to your childhood, and it's something that gave
yeah.
you joy,
It
right?
gave me great joy. I enjoyed it. We each had one. And remember the other thing, I'll just interject this, is that portion sizes are so different in the UK. William, I'm sure you noticed that as well. But so the donut was much smaller. It was delicious. But then I discovered my sister arranged for us to have a lovely lunch where she lives. And I discovered this that there is actually a type of broccoli called purple sprouting broccoli.
What's it
And
called?
I've purple sprouting broccoli,
Oh,
and it actually was actually developed by a farmer in the UK.
okay,
And I initially thought it was, you know how we you can get cauliflowers in different colors,
okay, yeah,
um, and you do actually get a purple cauliflower. It's not that, even though they're the same family technically of cruciferous vegetables. This is actually a beautiful. It really is looks like a broccoli stem, and
like
it, you see,
this.
that's right. It looks exactly like that. And so, if you imagine those. Pieces of broccoli in a delicious
Wow.
dish. They were so beautiful and
How
such a
how
rich
how were
color.
how were they cooked?
So what they had done, they actually had steamed them first, and then they sautéed them in just some simple garlic, olive oil, and light spices because it was sort of a side dish. But when I saw this, I was like, this is, I thought they were bluffing. I thought for sure this is, purple cauliflower. No, no, it's actually a real thing. So then I read up
Purple
about it, and
purple broccoli.
so it's purple broccoli. It's actual purple broccoli, and it grows in the UK. I think it was found by, or maybe the seeds were developed by a farmer in the UK, and you can't get it many places of the world. So I'm trying to track down a place. I believe California may have some. I've never tasted that in California.
Do you know if it? I mean, maybe you don't, but
Yeah,
I'm looking at it now and I'm
yeah,
thinking if it's purple, it probably
yeah.
has anthocyanins.
I'm guessing that it has anthocyanin. So right now I'm trying to find if there's any, of course, being nerds as we are, the rest of our lives, I'm also trying to see what scientific, backing there is, just to
I'm gonna
what studies exist, because it's been around, but it doesn't, certainly on the east coast of the US, it doesn't exist. Um, and from looking, I think it might be available in California. So if I find a source, I'm going to share it with you so
you
we can
gotta let
both
me
try
know.
it.
Yeah, definitely let me know. And for everyone listening, anthocyanins are bioactive. They're found in many plants and vegetables. They're in blueberries, they're in purple potatoes, and they activate a lot of our body's health defenses. They're good for the microbiome. They affect cardiovascular system. So,
Mhm.
um, anytime you see something purple, which is a royal color, by the way,
Yes, yes, it is.
it actually means that there's something distinctive about it. Well,
About
that's
it.
great,
Yeah.
awesome. I didn't really know about purple broccoli, but now I'm going to look into it as well.
And I'm going to try to find us a source volume. The other thing is that they're rich in sulforaphanes, right? So those are, so
Yeah.
cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts. These foods are rich in sulforaphanes, which are excellent antioxidants, especially for gut microbiome. So it's lovely when food is so beautiful, delicious, as well as healthy. So I definitely want to figure out how we can get some.
So you had a donut that brought you back to childhood and joy. You had purple sprouting broccoli, which sounds awesome. Now you've got my mind clicking along, thinking about it. So let me tell you what I did. So I wasn't very adventurous when I was in the UK, although I did actually have a lovely baby beet salad
Oh,
that was on a bed of yogurt that had
mm.
been scented with cumin.
Oh,
And so
delicious.
it was
That goes
very
well. Yeah,
delicate.
yeah.
It was delicious. And it was, like I could have had that just as my main dish. It was
Yes.
so delicious.
And beets are super healthy because they're rich in nitrates and they help your cardiovascular health, right?
That's right. A
So
lot of people
so
don't know
they like
this.
actually, yeah, they
A lot
help
of people don't
your
know this, but basically,
vasculature.
when you
Yeah,
chew beets, the
yeah,
nitrogen in the soil interacts with the microbiome on our tongue. So our healthy tongue bacteria, nobody thinks about your tongue. You might brush your teeth, or
yeah.
brush your
No one
tongue.
thinks about the oral microbiome, but
Yeah, so
it's sort
like
of forgotten. Yeah,
so the tongue, if you take a look at a big magnified picture of the tongue, right, like electron microscope, it would look like crevices on Mars. There's all these
yeah.
like canals going in there, and there's healthy bacteria that live in there because it's part of our gut. It's the beginning of our gut, and so when you chew your beets, the nitrogen interacts with the bacteria. It converts the chemical into a form. When you swallow it, turns into nitric oxide, which widens your blood vessels, lowers your blood pressure, and calls out stem cells. Good for your heart, and it really is just great for me, my taste buds. It was that cumin.
Delicious.
The
Oh, the
cumin
cumin is delicious.
really did
Delicious.
it for me with the beets. Then the other thing that I had, again in sort of like the salad vein, after London, because I'm finishing my next book,
Yes.
I flew over to the Mediterranean because I thought, here I am this far from my home. Let me go
What a
do
good
some
idea.
research.
Yeah.
So I literally flew into the Mediterranean. I was in Greece, and I went to a village, and I started to eat what people were eating in the village in order to be
Yes.
able
The
to
local foods. Yeah.
literally walk the walk. So I wasn't just talking about it or writing about it. And I'll show you one of the first things I had that was absolutely delicious. I got a picture of it right here. Check it out.
Oh,
This
that's beautiful.
is
That's
a
beautiful.
real Greek salad. I want to tell you what's in
That's
it.
the traditional. That's a traditional Greek salad made
That's a
in
real Greek
Greece.
salad. So
Yes.
cucumbers. These are tomatoes from a volcano. So they're super concentrated and sweet. They have a ton of lycopene in them. They just explode with sweet flavor in your mouth. Um, Red onions, which actually are good for your
Mhm.
metabolism. They can actually help you lose weight. Sliced up. There was some goat cheese, feta cheese made with goat's milk, which I enjoyed. I didn't have too much of it. There's four little cubes here.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, a ton of fresh mountain oregano.
Oh
Like,
yes. Yeah.
you
I
know,
love
and
oregano.
it,
Yeah.
like when you buy spices in a grocery store,
Mhm.
they've already lost a lot of their fragrance because who
Mhm.
knows how
Mhm.
long they've been picked.
Mhm.
These, man, you could smell that
Fresh. Yeah.
the
You
oregano
could.
from
Yeah.
from the other side of the room. And then something that you might not be able to see very clearly here are
Oh,
capers. See
oh,
those little green
capers.
guys?
Yes. Oh
I
yes.
love
Yes.
capers.
Delicious. Love capers.
So
Yes.
where I was in Greece, capers grow wild. And
Oh,
although
okay.
I didn't do it, the locals just go around and go into these little crevices and pluck out the
And
capers
pluck out the capers.
and they brine
Wow.
them. So
Wow.
basically, you brine them in salt, sometimes a little bit of vinegar,
Usually
and there
foods
you
and
have,
salads. Yeah. Yeah.
and then some extra virgin olive oil.
Yeah.
It was totally awesome. Hey there, I've got something important to share with you, and that is my guide to the 3 healthy foods that you might want to avoid if you're looking for longevity. Many products that are marketed as nutritious can actually undermine your health. And if you want to find out more about these sneaky ingredients and how to make better choices, then just click on the link below the video for all the details. It's very important to know what's really in your food. And this resource that I'm giving you gives you a head start. Get it right now for free in the description below. Or you can access the guide by scanning the QR code on the screen with your smartphone. Now, let's jump back into the video.
That's such a delicious dish. It's one of my favorite salads. And what I love about it, and I love that photograph, is that it's made totally differently in the traditional sense. Just like, cuisine in a certain country, when it's eaten in that country, it's made differently to, say, the Americanized version of it. No
Right.
fault to anyone, it's an adaptation. But here, the Greek salads are very large, and they have crumbled feta and small pieces of, say, tomato and stuff, and maybe some black olives. But the traditional one is actually big chunks. It's big chunks of feta,
Right.
big chunks of tomato, big chunks of cucumber, and of course that delicious prebiotic rich, red onion. So it's different, and I find it super delicious too. Of course, the
It
ingredients
was
are
it
freshly
was it
picked.
was it
Yeah.
was so tasty. And since you shared with me one thing that was not so good, healthy, let's say, but good, I'll share with you something that I tried when I was in Greece. These tomatoes from Santorini, which is where I
Yes.
was, are
Yeah.
unique because of they grow on volcanic soil, and they have a local specialty there that are tomato fritters. They literally take these volcanic tomatoes, they crush them up,
Wow.
they put them
Wow.
with a little bit of
How
breading, and then they deep
delicious.
fry. Oh, then they
Yeah.
mix them with mint, fresh grown mint,
Oh, delicious.
and then
Wow.
they have a little batter around them, and they deep fry them.
Deep fry
Um,
them.
you
They
know,
kind of like must pop in your mouth, right? Like
Oh,
make an
you know
explosion.
what,
Yeah.
it just
Yeah.
was, it wasn't, it wasn't oily, very oily. It was crunchy,
Hmm.
but it
Yeah.
was amazing. And, I just sampled one every time I go
Mm.
there. I love to try something local. And so
Yeah.
the,
That
the,
is delicious.
the person who runs the restaurant basically said, you have to try this.
Hmm.
So that's what I actually had. Okay, cool. Tell me about one thing you love to cook. This is like my favorite thing because
Yeah.
you're a trained chef. So I'm interested to know, like, when you are at home, what do you cook? Tell me one thing that you cook for yourself, and how do you do it?
So, I was raised vegetarian, well, so I tend to, if I'm cooking for myself, I cook any food because the rest of my family eats anything. But for myself, I usually prepare something that's plant-based. And I love working with the vegetables that are kind of overlooked or thought of as sad and not tasty. And I have to tell you, cauliflower, although it's having its time, it's one of those that is kind of thought of as just not tasty. So I love to do different things with it, but what I like to do is take a recipe that's delicious and make a healthier version so that I can eat
Hmm,
it more regularly.
okay.
So restaurants have, cauliflower bites and all these things. I like to take my Indian spices, sort of that you mentioned cumin. It's one of the traditional spices in Indian cuisine, coriander, and I make. We were in London, and by the way, one of the national, I think the national dish in London or in the UK used to be chicken tikka masala. So I actually
Hmm.
take those spices and I make my blend at home. So I use my different spices, make the blend, use some really good quality grass-fed yogurt to make a marinade. And
Oh,
then just like you might eat, if you consume chicken, if you might
yeah,
eat chicken tikka
yeah, yeah.
masala, I make that version, but with cauliflower,
A
and I make it in the
cauliflower
oven. Chicken
masala,
tikka,
tikka
yes.
masala,
So tikka masala
tikka
on
masala.
either cauliflower steak or I use the
Okay, so
florets.
tell me, what does tikka masala mean? I've always wondered what those two words mean.
So the word masala refers to a spice blend.
Okay,
So, I have a traditional family homemade masala, which is my
okay,
mom and my aunt's and grandmother's recipe.
cool.
Tikka just means sort of hot or spicy. So of course it's gotten a lot of fame through the dish, but it has basically those Indian spices in them
Hmm,
in different
hmm.
quantities, and you can make it very spicy if you want, or milder. Has the good spices which you and I talk about all the time, like turmeric with a pinch of black pepper, all of that involved. And what I do is I make it a little bit spicier for myself,
Okay.
but I'd love to. I've found that cauliflower takes it up most deliciously, and you can make it in the oven. You can do it as a cauliflower steak, but it
How long
does
do you
well.
marinate it? So you take you take the masala, you mix it in the yogurt,
Hmm. And
and
it's a little bit of yogurt,
then how long do you marinate it?
and so you can, because it's a vegetable, it's a shorter marination time. So if I'm just finished work and you go and marinate it
15
for a half
minutes?
hour,
Half
even
hour.
15
Okay.
minutes, you still get some good flavor
And
in
then
it
it goes
because it
right into
cooks
the
as
oven?
and it goes into the oven. I use a little bit of avocado oil,
Okay.
to kind of give it a little bit of fat, and I can oven bake it on a tray. You can actually do it on a pan, one of
What
those
temperature
great
and how
green
long?
pans. Right. So in the oven, about 400 degrees for about 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay,
And
pretty
just
hot.
watch, oven temperatures vary. So just watch to see that it's kind of cooking and it's cooked through. Cauliflower as a steak doesn't take that long to cook, but it's a great way to just kind of reinvent vegetables for ourselves, or make more wholesome plant-based dishes by adding in those spices. If you consume dairy, it's a good way to get in some good dairy products into your life, and then also the fiber and everything from the vegetables. But most importantly for me, I want it to be delicious, and I think you feel the same way. So I'll
Yeah.
pair that with another veggie or a nice green salad or something like that too, or
So
even something like chickpeas
what
protein.
does tikka stand for? What does tikka
Oh,
mean?
oh, tikka usually means spicy, like hot.
Oh,
So
okay.
you know how you have levels of heat with the spiciness on a restaurant menu. Tikka is hot.
Right, right. Cool. Well, look, I'll tell you, I'll riff off of what you just said and tell you one thing I made. I also love cauliflower. I will
Mm.
dust it with kind of a homemade curry
Mm.
powder,
Yes.
and put a little olive oil, mix it into a stainless
Delicious.
steel bowl, and then
Yes.
I put it right onto a cookie sheet.
Mm.
Uh, Heat up the oven and just bake to cook it, and it
Yes.
caramelizes a little bit,
Yes.
and then it's so good. It's like a snack. I could eat that as a snack,
It is a snack,
but it,
and
but it's
it's a snack, and if you have make a bigger portion or you have a few portions, it's almost it makes a meal with a salad or something like that. I
yeah.
love
No,
that.
listen, this is
Yeah,
I love. I'm gonna later. You can tell me what the recipe is. I'm gonna actually try it. One of the things I wanted people to do is to really be a fly on the wall and hear. But look, this has been great. Thank you very much, and we'll see you again soon, hopefully.
dear, always enjoyed talking with you, and thank you for that too.
Hi there. If you enjoyed watching this video, I know you'll love the next one. Stay here and check it out, and I'll see you there.